Hi everybody. Today's lesson's on plant hormones. So, Charles Darwin wanted to figure out what causes tropisms. For example, we talked about phototropisms, plants' ability to bend towards light. But how do they know where the light's coming from if they don't have eyes to see it? So Charles Darwin and his son set up a very, very simple experiment that we see in the diagram here. We have light shining on this little seedling from the left side. And when they cut the very, very, very tip off of that seedling, that area known as the apical meristem, that seedling didn't bend towards the light like you would expect. It grew straight up. They then tried covering the tip of that seedling. Again, it grew straight up, not bending towards the light like you would expect. When they put a clear cover over the top of that seedling, it did bend towards the left, which is the direction the light was coming from. When they tried putting a cover over the base, it still bent towards the light. So, from these experiments, they realized that whatever causes phototropism, what causes them to bend, is a chemical, and that chemical is produced at the very, very tip of the plant, because it's only when you manipulate the top of the plant that you affect that plant's ability to bend towards the light. When you altered the base of the plant, it was still able to bend. They then realized that that chemical must be able to travel through the entire plant. You see, because they reattached the tip of that plant that they decapitated, basically, with this jelly block right here. And when they did that, the chemical was able to travel from the top, through the jelly block, and to the rest of the plant, causing it to bend once again. Right? When they put a piece of impermeable plastic between the base of the plant and the tip of the plant, they realized that the chemical wasn't able to travel through that plastic, and therefore that plant grew straight up and did not bend towards the light. So again, they found that whatever causes tropisms is a chemical. They didn't know what chemical yet, and it's produced in the tip but travels down through the rest of the plant. You see, what Darwin and his son discovered was the first of many plant hormones. Right? So a hormone is a chemical that controls different cells or parts of the plant. Right? Just like hormones that we have in our body, they're often produced in one part of the body in very, very, very small concentration, and they travel throughout your body, and they have different effects on different parts of your body. Think about like the male sex hormone testosterone, right? When you alter testosterone, it affects different parts of you, right? So testosterone will make your voice deeper, it'll make your muscles and your hair grow. It has all these different effects on different parts of your body. And when we look at each plant hormone, they have multiple effects throughout different parts of the plant. So, the hormone that Darwin and his son discovered was a hormone known as auxin. So auxin's produced in the apical meristem of the stem, which is the very tip of the stem. It's the growing portion of the stem. Alright? So the effects of it, in the cells, it causes cell elongation. So it causes those plant cells to stretch out. In very, very small concentrations, it also promotes the growth of roots. Okay? So when you have something called a rooting hormone, you can cut off a stem of a plant, you dip it in the rooting hormone, then you plant it in some soil, and that stem will grow roots right out the bottom. It's a form of asexual reproduction called making cuttings. It's very, very simple to do, and it's an easy way to propagate many plants. Okay? The next effect of auxin is it causes tropisms, which is related to this idea that it also causes cell elongation. You see, if we look at this diagram over here, we have light shining on this plant from the right side, right? So since this is the well-lit side of the plant, it causes all the auxin to travel, the auxins, these little red dots here, it causes them to travel to the shaded side of the plant. And because all the auxin accumulates on the shaded side of the plant, it causes these cells to grow faster than these cells over here. Alright, so these cells start stretching out and they start elongating, and as that plant grows upwards, it starts to bend in this direction towards the lit side of the plant. The final effects of auxins I want to talk about is that auxins cause this growth pattern known as apical dominance. Apical dominance is a plant's tendency to grow upwards faster than it would grow outwards. So if we look at this tree right here, this is a good example of apical dominance, right? Usually these trees have kind of like this triangle shape, right? They're kind of like stretched out vertically. The reason is because all the auxin is produced right here at the top of the plant, right? Now, as it travels down to the base of the plant, the auxin concentration gets lower and lower and lower and lower. Now, what that means is that the high concentrations of auxin inhibit the growth of these side branches right here. So because you have the most auxin concentration at the top, these side branches are most inhibited from growing. They're prevented from growing out to their full potential. Because you have a lower auxin concentration down here, these branches are less inhibited. So they're able to grow outwards faster, which is why you have this triangle shape. Right? Now, let's say for instance that you cut off the very tip of this tree, right? So you snip off the apical meristem up here. Right? What that does is two things. The apical meristem is the only growing region of the plant, so it prevents that stem from going upwards any higher. Now that plant will still grow, it just won't be able to grow any higher. Now, cutting off that tip also removes the auxin, so now that you lower the auxin concentration throughout the entire plant, there is nothing holding these side branches back from growing, so these branches are able to grow out to their full potential. Right? Essentially what you did is you took this tall tree and you're going to turn it into a short, wide bush. Alright? So that's what happens once you remove the auxin or the apical meristem. Alright guys, that's it for today's lesson. Thank you.